You're being selfish, Mum. Aunt Jessica has nowhere else to go. My 17-year-old son David's words hit me like a slap across the face, but I didn't flinch. Not this time. I stood in our kitchen doorway, watching my husband Michael nod in agreement, while Jessica, my supposed best friend, dabbed at fake tears with a tissue. The same kitchen where she would poison my morning coffee in 3 months. The same counter where I'd collapse convulsing, while they both watched with relief instead of horror. The same linoleum floor where I'd die, begging them to call an ambulance that would never come. But that was my first life. Emily, be reasonable, Michael said, his arm protectively around Jessica's shoulders. She lost her job, her apartment. We have the space. I almost laughed. Space. Jessica wanted more than space. She wanted my life, my husband, my son, my house, my bank accounts. In my previous life, she'd gotten all of it. Started by moving into our guest room, playing the victim so perfectly that my own family chose her over me. When did you both decide this? I asked quietly, my voice steady despite the rage burning in my chest. Without consulting me. Jessica's lower lip trembled. I didn't want to be a burden, Emily, but Michael insisted. Don't. The word came out sharp enough to make them all freeze. Don't you dare play innocent with me, Jessica. The temperature in the room seemed to drop to 10 degrees. I saw the flash of something cold and calculating in Jessica's eyes before she quickly masked it with hurt confusion. Emily, what's gotten into you? Michael's voice carried that patronising tone I remembered so well. The same tone he'd used when dismissing my concerns about Jessica's increasing presence in our lives. My complaints about feeling sick after meals she prepared. My desperate pleas for help as the poison slowly destroyed my organs. I stepped further into the kitchen, my bare feet silent on the floor. What's gotten into me is clarity, Michael. For the first time in years, I can see exactly what's happening here. David scoffed. Mum, you're being paranoid. Aunt Jessica is family. Family. The word tasted bitter in my mouth. Jessica had been my college roommate, maid of honour at my wedding, David's godmother. She'd held my hand when I had morning sickness, celebrated every promotion at my marketing firm, been there for every milestone. And she'd hated me for every single blessing in my life. Family, I repeated softly, looking directly at Jessica. Tell me, family, when exactly did you decide you wanted to replace me? The mask slipped completely for just a second. Jessica's face contorted with pure venom before she caught herself, but I saw it. The same expression she'd worn while watching me die. I don't understand what you mean, she whispered, but her hands were trembling now. Oh, I think you do. I moved to the counter, running my fingers along the marble surface where she would later crush the Digitalis tablets. You've been planning this for months, haven't you? The sob story about losing your job. Did you even have a job to lose? Or did you quit to make yourself available for your little project? Michael stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. Emily, that's enough. Jessica is going through a difficult time, and instead of showing compassion, you're attacking her with these crazy accusations. Crazy? I nodded slowly. That's what you called me before too. When I started getting sick, when I begged you to take me to the hospital, when I told you something was wrong with the food Jessica kept bringing me. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. Jessica had gone very still, her tear-filled eyes now sharp and calculating. I never said that, Michael protested, but his voice lacked conviction. No, not yet. But you will. I turned to face my son, my heart breaking all over again. And you, David, you'll choose her too. When I'm too weak to fight anymore, when I'm bedridden and difficult, you'll both be so grateful for Jessica's selfless care that you won't question why I keep getting sicker. David's face paled. Mum, you're scaring me. Good. He should be scared. They all should be. I walked to the kitchen table and sat down, my movements calm and deliberate. Here's what's going to happen. Jessica is not moving in. She's not staying for dinner. She's not coming back to this house. You can't make that decision alone, Michael said, his jaw tight. Can't I? I pulled my phone from my pocket and placed it on the table. I've been doing some research since Jessica's sudden housing crisis began. Interesting thing about digitalis poisoning. It mimics heart failure, especially in women my age who've been under stress. Jessica went white as a sheet. Also interesting, the symptoms get worse gradually, making it look like a natural decline. The victim becomes weak, confused, easy to dismiss as hysterical. I looked up at my husband and son. Perfect for someone who wants to slide into their life without suspicion. This is insane, Michael breathed. Is it? Jessica, want to tell them about your little chemistry hobby? The one you mentioned in college? How you were fascinated by plant-based toxins? Jessica's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Or maybe we should discuss your debt situation. Because I hired a private investigator yesterday. Funny how easy it is when you know what to look for. Turns out, you owe quite a bit of money to some very unpleasant people. Money that could be easily accessed if you were, say, the beneficiary of a life insurance policy. The room erupted into chaos. Michael shouting about paranoia and stress. David demanding explanations I couldn't give. How do you tell your son you've lived this nightmare before? Jessica trying to maintain her innocent act while edging toward the door. But I sat perfectly still in the centre of it all, watching the foundation of my old life crumble, exactly as it had the first time. Except this time, I was the one holding the sledgehammer. Get out, I said quietly, and somehow my voice cut through all the noise. Jessica, get out of my house. Now! She straightened her shoulders, and for a moment I saw the real woman underneath. Cold, calculating, utterly without conscience. You're making a mistake, Emily, she said, her voice no longer shaking. A very big mistake. No, I replied, standing up slowly. My mistake was trusting you the first time. I won't make it again. As she grabbed her purse and headed for the door, I caught her arm. She flinched at my touch, and I leaned close enough to whisper in her ear. I know what you are. I know what you planned. And if you ever come near my family again, I will destroy you so completely that even the people you owe money to will pity what's left. She jerked away from me, her face twisted with rage and fear, and stormed out. The front door slammed so hard the windows rattled. In the silence that followed, I could hear my husband and son breathing heavily behind me. I had just declared war on a woman who had already killed me once. This time I intended to win. The silence after Jessica's departure lasted exactly 47 seconds. I counted. Michael was the first to break it, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. What the hell was that about, Emily? You just accused our oldest friend of planning to murder you. I turned away from the front door, studying their faces. David looked shell-shocked, his 17-year-old mind struggling to process what he'd witnessed. Michael's expression was a mixture of fury and something else. Doubt? Fear? In my previous life, I'd never gotten this far. I'd been too trusting, too willing to believe their dismissals. Sit down, I said, moving back to the kitchen table. Both of you. Don't tell me what to do in my own house, Michael snapped. Our house, I corrected quietly. The house I've been paying half the mortgage on for 15 years while building my career. The house where I almost died last time. David sank into a chair, his face pale. Mum, what do you mean last time? You're talking like this happened before? How do you explain rebirth to people who've never experienced death? How do you describe the sensation of your soul returning to your body 3 days before the first accident that would start your slow decline. Sometimes we get second chances, I said carefully. Sometimes the universe gives us the opportunity to see things clearly. Michael remained standing, arms crossed. You hired a private investigator to spy on Jessica. I hired someone to verify what I already knew. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the email I'd received that morning. Would you like to see what Robert Davies found? The investigator had been thorough. More thorough than I'd expected, actually. In my previous life, I'd been too sick to do proper research by the time I became suspicious. Jessica Martinez, maiden name Walsh, currently owes $847,000 to various creditors, including some very interesting offshore accounts. I looked up at Michael. Did you know your family friend has been running an elaborate insurance fraud scheme for the past 5 years? David's mouth fell open. What? I continued reading. 3 previous victims, all women who trusted her. Margaret Chen in Portland, heart failure after Jessica moved in to help during her divorce. Rebecca Torres in Denver, sudden cardiac arrest while Jessica was caring for her during chemo treatments. And Linda Kim in Phoenix. Stop! Michael's voice was hoarse. This is insane. You're suggesting Jessica is some kind of serial killer? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm telling you what happened. What was going to happen? I set the phone down and looked directly at my husband. In 3 weeks, she would have convinced you both that I was having a breakdown. Too much stress at work, hormonal changes, maybe early menopause making me paranoid and difficult. The colour drained from Michael's face. I could see the recognition dawning. Those were almost exactly the words Jessica had used about me just yesterday. She would have moved in temporarily to help manage my episodes. She would have insisted on doing the cooking, especially my meals, since I was too unstable to take care of myself properly. I traced patterns on the table with my finger, remembering the burn of digitalis in my throat. And slowly, very slowly, I would have gotten sicker. But how could you possibly know? David started. Because it already happened, I said simply. I lived it, I died from it, and somehow I got sent back to try again. Michael sat down heavily, his face grey. Emily, you need help. Professional help. These delusions. Are they delusions? I opened another email on my phone. Yesterday, I called Margaret Chen's sister in Portland. Guess what she told me about her sister's final months? I didn't wait for an answer. Margaret started getting sick right after Jessica moved in. Heart palpitations, nausea, confusion. The doctors couldn't find anything definitively wrong. Margaret kept insisting something was off about Jessica, that she felt worse after eating meals Jessica prepared. Her family thought she was being paranoid, ungrateful for Jessica's help. David had gone completely still. Margaret died alone in her bedroom while Jessica was running errands. Natural causes, the death certificate said. Heart failure. Jessica inherited everything as Margaret's chosen family, since Margaret had become estranged from her relatives during her final months. I looked between my husband and son. Does any of this sound familiar? Michael's hands were shaking now. What about the other women? Rebecca Torres's daughter told me a very similar story. Her mother became difficult and paranoid after Jessica moved in to help during cancer treatment. Rebecca kept accusing Jessica of doing something to her food, but everyone assumed it was the chemo making her confused. I paused. Rebecca left Jessica her entire estate too. And Linda Kim, David whispered. Phoenix police are actually reopening that case. Seems Linda's nephew never believed the heart attack was natural. He's been pushing for an exhumation. I smiled grimly. Apparently, Jessica left Phoenix very suddenly after that inheritance came through. The kitchen fell silent except for the tick of the clock on the wall. I could practically see the wheels turning in their heads, memories reshuffling themselves into new patterns. Michael finally spoke, his voice barely audible. The things she said about you yesterday. She was laying the groundwork, planting seeds of doubt about my mental state, my reliability. I pulled up my call log. This morning, I also spoke with Dr. Harrison at Phoenix General. He remembered Linda Kim's case because something bothered him about it. Healthy 42-year-old woman, no family history of heart disease, sudden cardiac arrest. What did he say? David asked. He said the symptoms Linda described in her final weeks, heart palpitations, nausea, visual disturbances, confusion, were consistent with digitalis poisoning. But her family was so focused on Jessica's devoted care that they never questioned the natural death ruling. Michael buried his face in his hands. God, Emily, you almost let her kill me. Again. I reached across the table and touched his arm. But you didn't know. Neither of you knew. That's how she operates. She makes herself indispensable while isolating her victims. But why you? David asked, tears in his eyes. Why us? I'd wondered about that myself during the long, agonizing weeks of my first death. Because we have everything she wants. A stable home, financial security, a family that functions. Jessica has never been able to maintain any of those things on her own, so she takes them from women who can... My phone buzzed with another text from my investigator. I glanced at it and felt a chill run down my spine. What is it? Michael asked. Robert says Jessica just bought a plane ticket. One way to Seattle. I looked up at them. She's running. That's good, right? David said hopefully. She's leaving us alone. I shook my head slowly. No, sweetheart, this is bad. Very bad. Why? Because Jessica doesn't give up. She's invested too much time in this con to walk away empty-handed. I stood up, my mind already racing through possibilities. She's going to regroup, come up with a new plan. Maybe try to frame me for something, or... My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered it on speaker. Hello, Emily. Jessica's voice was cold, controlled. Nothing like the trembling victim who'd sat in my kitchen an hour ago. I hope you're pleased with yourself. What do you want, Jessica? I want you to understand something very clearly. You've made a powerful enemy today. You think you've won, but this is far from over. Is that a threat? It's a promise. You took something from me, Emily. You cost me time, money, and a very comfortable situation. I don't forget debts like that. The line went dead. Michael and David stared at me in shock. She is coming back, I said quietly, and next time, she won't be playing the victim. 2 days after Jessica's threatening call, I found the first dead rat in our mailbox. Michael discovered it when he went to get the morning paper. Its small body twisted and stiff, foam dried around its mouth. Classic poison victim. Jessica's calling card. She's escalating, I told Detective Rivera at the police station an hour later. This is psychological warfare. Rivera, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, glanced between Michael and me with barely concealed skepticism. Mrs. Harrison, you're asking me to believe your former friend is a serial killer based on some private investigator reports and a dead rodent. I'm asking you to look at the evidence. I slid the folder across her desk. 3 women, 3 deaths, same pattern. Jessica moves in, they get sick, they die. She inherits everything. Coincidence isn't proof of murder. Michael leaned forward. What about the threats? The phone call? She didn't explicitly threaten violence. This isn't over could mean anything. Rivera closed the folder. Look, I'll file a report about the harassment, but unless you have concrete evidence of a crime... She poisoned my wife, Michael said flatly. Emily just hasn't died yet this time. Rivera's eyebrows shot up. Excuse me? I kicked Michael under the table. but the damage was done. What I mean is exactly what I said. Michael's voice was steady, determined. My wife experienced something unusual, a warning, you could call it, about what Jessica planned to do. A psychic vision? Rivera's tone was mocking now. Call it whatever you want. But Emily knew things about Jessica's past victims that she couldn't have known any other way. Details that matched exactly with what your private investigator found. I watched Rivera's face carefully. She was listening, even if she didn't believe. Mrs. Harrison, have you experienced any episodes lately? Confusion, memory issues, hallucinations? The classic dismissal. Paint the victim as unstable before investigating the threat. No episodes, detective, just clarity. I stood up. When Jessica kills me, and she will try, remember this conversation. We left Rivera staring after us, the folder still closed on her desk. That afternoon, I started packing. Where are we going? David asked, watching me fold clothes into suitcases. Somewhere Jessica can't find us easily. She's going to make her move soon. I paused, holding one of Michael's shirts. In my first life, the poisoning started exactly 3 days after I refused to let her move in. She broke into the house while we were at work and school, contaminated everything in the kitchen. So we run? Michael appeared in the doorway, his face grim. We strategically relocate. I zipped up the suitcase. To my sister Claire's place in Vancouver. It'll give us time to prepare. Prepare for what? I turned to face my husband and son, these 2 men who'd chosen another woman over me in my previous life. They looked older, somehow, worn down by the weight of what they had learned about their friend. To end this permanently, Michael frowned. What does that mean? It means Jessica has killed 3 women and gotten away with it. She's not going to stop until I'm dead and she has my life. I pulled out my phone and showed them a new text from Robert Davies. She just withdrew $50,000 in cash from 3 different accounts. That's not running away money, that's hiring money. Hiring money for what? David's voice was small, scared. Professional help. Jessica's done playing games. I moved to the window and looked out at our quiet suburban street. She knows I'm onto her pattern, so she's changing tactics. A black sedan had been parked across from our house for the past 2 hours, different from the usual neighbourhood cars. David, pack a bag, just essentials. We leave in 30 minutes. Mom! Now? He ran to his room. Michael stayed, studying my face. There's something you're not telling us, he said quietly. I sighed. In my previous life, Jessica didn't just kill me. She destroyed our family first. Turned you and David against me completely. Made you believe I was losing my mind, that I was dangerous to be around. How? Lies. Manipulation. She planted things in my purse, my car, my office, made it look like I was stealing, drinking, having affairs. The memory still burned. By the time I was too weak to defend myself, you both couldn't wait for me to die. Michael's face went white. Emily, I would never... You did. You both did. I touched his cheek gently. And I don't blame you. She's very good at what she does, but this time we're not playing her game. My phone rang. Claire's number. Em? Thank God you're okay. There's been a woman calling here asking about you. Says she's your friend Jessica, worried because you haven't been returning her calls. Ice filled my veins. What did you tell her? Nothing, obviously. She gave me the creeps, but, she knew things about you, about our family, personal things. We're coming to stay with you. Tonight. Of course, but... And Claire, don't trust anyone who claims to know me, no matter how convincing they sound. After I hung up, Michael was staring at me. She found your sister already? Jessica is thorough. She would have researched my entire family tree before starting this con. I grabbed my laptop bag and keys. We need to go. Now. As we carried our bags to the car, I noticed the black sedan was gone. That worried me more than if it had stayed. The drive to Vancouver took 8 hours. We switched cars twice, used cash for gas, turned our phones to airplane mode. Basic counter-surveillance techniques I'd learned from too many crime documentaries in my previous life. David slept in the back seat. Michael drove while I watched the mirrors for tails. "Can I ask you something?" he said as we crossed the border. "In your previous life, did you love me? Really love me?" The question caught me off guard. "Why would you ask that?" "Because you're so different now. Harder, more suspicious, like you're looking at me and seeing someone who hurt you." I was quiet for a long time, watching the dark highway roll past. "I loved you enough to forgive you," I said finally, "even while I was dying. I kept hoping you'd realize what Jessica was doing, that you'd save me. But I didn't. No. You held her hand at my funeral and thanked her for trying so hard to help me." Michael's knuckles went white on the steering wheel. "This time is different," I continued. "This time you're choosing to believe me, to fight with me instead of against me. That changes everything." We reached Claire's house at 2 a.m. She met us at the door in her robe, her face tight with worry. "What's really going on, Em?" As we sat in her kitchen, I told her everything. About Jessica, about my death, about the second chance I'd somehow been given. Claire listened without interruption, her expression growing more troubled with each detail. "I believe you," she said when I finished. "Just like that. You know things you couldn't know. Details about our childhood that I've never told anyone. And," she hesitated, "a woman matching Jessica's description was in my neighbourhood yesterday, asking the mailman about my routine." The trap was closing around us, but this time I was ready for it. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hello, Emily. Enjoying your little vacation? Don't worry. We'll catch up soon. Your sister has such a lovely garden. Be a shame if something happened to it, or to her." I showed the message to Michael and Claire. "She's here," Claire whispered. "Good," I said, surprising them both. "I was hoping she'd follow us." "Good. Emily, she's threatening to hurt Claire." I smiled, and it felt cold and sharp. "No, she's walking into exactly the trap I wanted her in. Jessica thinks she's hunting me, but she's wrong." I pulled out my laptop and opened a file I'd been preparing for weeks. "This time, I'm hunting her." The laptop screen glowed in Claire's darkened kitchen as I pulled up the files I'd been preparing for 3 weeks. Not just evidence, a complete digital reconstruction of Jessica's entire criminal network. "What is all this?" Michael leaned over my shoulder, squinting at spreadsheets and document scans. "Jessica's real business model." I clicked through folders labelled with women's names. "She doesn't just kill for inheritance money. She's been running a sophisticated identity theft ring, using her victims' personal information to open credit lines, take out loans, even apply for mortgages in their names." Claire gasped. "How many women?" 14 that I can prove. Margaret, Rebecca and Linda were just the ones where she got greedy and went for the full inheritance. I opened another file. "But look at this. Jessica has been systematically stealing from dozens of women she befriended. Small amounts, spread out over time so they wouldn't notice immediately." David appeared in the doorway, hair messy from sleep. "Mum, what's happening?" "Your Aunt Jessica is about to learn what happens when you underestimate your victims." I pulled up a video file, especially when one of them comes back from the dead. The video showed Jessica entering a building in downtown Vancouver. Timestamp, 2 hours ago. "Where is that?" Michael asked. "The law offices of Hamilton, Burke and Associates. She's meeting with someone named Thomas Brennan." I smiled grimly. a very expensive criminal defense attorney who specializes in getting killers acquitted on technicalities. How do you know that? Because I've been tracking her every move since she left town. GPS tracker in her rental car, surveillance on her hotel, monitoring all her communications. I closed the laptop. Jessica thinks she's hunting us, but I've been 3 steps ahead this entire time. Claire frowned. What exactly are you planning? Perfect justice, the kind Jessica never gave her victims. I stood up and walked to the window. Jessica's rental car was parked across the street, just like I knew it would be. She's watching the house right now, waiting for the perfect moment to make her move. Should we call the police? David asked nervously. Detective Rivera? The woman who thinks I'm having delusions? I shook my head. No, we're going to handle this ourselves. Michael grabbed my arm. Emily, you're scaring me. What are you really planning? I looked at my husband, the man who had chosen another woman over me, who had watched me die with relief instead of grief, who was now finally fighting to protect me. I'm planning to give Jessica exactly what she gave her other victims. A slow, public destruction of everything she values most. My phone chimed with another message. This time, it wasn't from Jessica, it was from Detective Rivera. Mrs. Harrison, you need to come in immediately. We found something. I showed the message to the others. What do you think they found? Claire asked. Probably Jessica's real identity, or maybe evidence from one of the previous murders. I grabbed my coat. This is perfect timing, actually. We're not going back to the police station, Michael said firmly. It's too dangerous with Jessica following us. We're not going to the police station, I smiled. We're going to the place where this all ends. 30 minutes later, we stood in the parking lot of Vancouver General Hospital, the same hospital where, in my previous life, Jessica had convinced the doctors I was having a psychiatric breakdown when I begged them to test my blood for poison. Why here? David asked. Because this is where Jessica planned to bring me after the poisoning started, where she would have played the devoted friend, sadly explaining to everyone how my mental health issues had gotten so bad that I was imagining threats from the person trying hardest to help me. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. Dr. Reeves, this is Emily Harrison. Yes, I know it's late. I need you to run those tests we discussed. Yes, now. My friend Jessica is about to check herself into your emergency room with what she'll claim is digitalis poisoning. Michael stared at me. What are you doing? Giving Jessica a taste of her own medicine. Literally. I hung up and looked at my family. For the past 3 weeks, while Jessica has been planning my death, I've been planning something much more elegant. Emily. Don't worry. I haven't poisoned her. I'm not a killer. I watched the hospital entrance. But Jessica doesn't know that. Right about now, she's starting to feel the effects of what she thinks is digitalis in her system. What did you actually give her? Claire asked. Syrup of ipecac mixed with a mild sedative, delivered through the air conditioning system in her hotel room. Completely harmless, but it mimics the early stages of digitalis poisoning perfectly. I smiled coldly. She'll be nauseous, dizzy, confused, terrified that someone is doing to her exactly what she planned to do to me. As if summoned by my words, an ambulance screamed into the hospital parking lot. Through the back windows, I could see Jessica on a stretcher, conscious but clearly distressed. Now what? David whispered. Now we go inside and watch justice unfold. In the emergency room, Jessica lay on a hospital bed, her face pale and sweaty. A doctor I recognised, Dr. Reeves, was asking her questions while a nurse drew blood. Jessica's eyes found mine across the room. The terror in them was beautiful. Emily, she called out weakly, help me! Someone poisoned me. I walked over to her bedside. Michael and David flanking me. Poisoned? Are you sure? Maybe you're just having a psychiatric episode. Sometimes stress can cause physical symptoms that seem very real. Her eyes widened as she recognised her own words being thrown back at her. Dr. Reeves looked up from Jessica's chart. Miss Martinez, you said you suspect digitalis poisoning? Yes, Someone must have put it in my food, or... Jessica's voice trailed off as she saw my smile. Interesting choice, I said conversationally. Digitalis, that's what you used on Margaret Chen, isn't it? And Rebecca Torres. And Linda Kim. I don't know what you're talking about, Jessica whispered, but her heart monitor was spiking. Dr. Reeves frowned. Mrs. Harrison, do you know this patient? Oh, yes, we're old friends. Jessica was just telling me about her hobby, studying plant-based toxins. Fascinating stuff. I leaned closer to Jessica's bed. She knows so much about how digitalis affects the human body. The nausea, the confusion, the heart palpitations that mimic natural cardiac events. You're trying to frame me, Jessica gasped. Frame you? For what? I tilted my head innocently. I haven't accused you of anything. I'm just making conversation while we wait for your test results. Detective Rivera appeared in the doorway, her expression grim. Behind her was another detective I didn't recognize. Miss Martinez? Rivera approached the bed. I'm Detective Rivera, Vancouver PD. We need to ask you some questions about Margaret Chen, Becca Torres, and Linda Kim. Jessica's face went white as bone. The blood tests from all 3 exhumations came back, Rivera continued. Digitalis poisoning in all cases, and your fingerprints were found on pill bottles, recovered from Linda Kim's house. This is impossible, Jessica breathed. I was never... You can't prove... Actually, we can. Rivera held up an evidence bag containing what looked like Jessica's jewellery box. Your hotel room had quite a collection of personal items belonging to your victims. Jewellery, photos, documents, almost like trophies. I watched Jessica's world collapse in real time. Her carefully constructed facade cracking, revealing the predator underneath. But the most interesting thing, Rivera continued, was your laptop. Detailed plans for Emily Harrison's murder, including timelines, poison dosages, and contingency strategies if she became suspicious. Jessica's monitor flatlined into a steady beep as she lost consciousness. Dr. Reeves rushed to stabilize her while Rivera turned to me. The blood tests will show she was never actually poisoned, won't they? Probably just food poisoning, I said mildly. Happens to the best of us. Rivera almost smiled. Right, food poisoning. 6 months later, I stood in a courtroom watching Jessica receive 4 consecutive life sentences without parole. She'd tried to claim diminished capacity, that she'd been poisoned and wasn't thinking clearly when the evidence was found. No one believed her. Michael took my hand as we left the courthouse. It's really over. It's over. I looked at my husband and son, these 2 men who had chosen to fight beside me instead of against me. Jessica won't hurt anyone ever again. David wrapped his arms around both of us. I'm sorry, Mum, for not believing you at first. You believed me when it mattered, I said, holding him tight. That's what family does. As we walked toward our car, I felt a strange lightness in my chest. The weight of my previous death, the fury that had driven me through these months of planning and revenge, all of it was finally lifting. I had been given a second chance at life, and I'd used it not just to save myself, but to stop a killer who would have claimed dozens more victims. The universe, it seemed, had chosen its champion well. Behind us, Jessica was loaded into a prison transport van, her face pressed against the barred window. Our eyes met one last time. I smiled and walked away, my family beside me, into a future she could never touch again.